Michigan gets a big win over those stubborn Hawkeyes. What? Me worry? Next on Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Yes, caught.
This is no time for that. In the pocket and a sack. Tim Jamison.
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, and a touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him, and a leaping interception by Woodson.
Arbor back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sack. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue, and welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. I'm Steve Deace, Brandon Brown, Michael Spath from Wolverine Digest, and WTKA-Ann Ann Arbor will be joining us here in the next segment. But we begin with Michigan getting a survive and advance victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes, a rare win in the Harbaugh era against a team in the top 15. I think Michigan is now 8-20 in these games, but it was the kind of game Michigan had to win with its back against the wall in order to keep its, I guess we'll still call them, legit chances of winning the first Big Ten title in 15 years. 15 years. 15 years. I say that out loud and like it doesn't resonate. You know, it's like when rich people start talking about what stuff they buy cost and you just like can't relate to it because it's a number that is beyond your comprehension. Michigan going 15 years between winning championships is such a number. But technically, Michigan's hopes of winning the Big Ten title are alive, and you have Don Brown and Michigan's defense to thank for that. They put forth an all-time effort, historic 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 4 easy for me to say, forced turnovers, and Michigan wins 10-3. I think a lot of people liked the under in this game, but weren't necessarily thinking it was going to be 10-3. I mean, the best thing you can say is that Michigan did something that's hard to do, beat Iowa in its favored version of a rock fight. And the Hawkeyes came in offensively with a lot of confidence. They had just posted their best yardage total in the Kirk Ferentz era, and now they posted one of their worst. 1 measly yard rushing is all Iowa had in the game. So Michigan gets a huge win. Youngsters like Dax Hill making an impact all over the field. Cam McGrone. Looks like Michigan has found something. In fact, the defense has played well, except for that Wisconsin game, which was a systemic meltdown. Remember, Army had its worst offensive performance in 4 years against Michigan. Okay, so given the youth of this unit, and now, I think now it's beginning to emerge and come on, and you're starting to see the speed and athleticism that Michigan has recruited. Unfortunately, there's another side of the ball. And I don't even know what to say at what we're watching. Except I've said that before. I mean, it's just, you get 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 4 turnovers. And the other team has the ball with a chance to tie or win with a 2-point conversion at the end. I don't even know how that's possible. You have to be, I mean, terrible. Like, bet intruder, you are very dumb, for real bad. If Michigan has even a competent, forget the explosiveness and everything else we thought we were going to see this season. All right, and I don't know what speed and space is. I don't know. Michigan's offense is more like double amputee, or maybe lost in space is a better way of putting it. But if you have even a competent offense and you get a defensive effort like that, you win that game like 24-3. And it's just not competitive in the fourth quarter. So there is a ton of work to do there, because you can't count on an all-timer historic level of performance on defense to run the gauntlet that Michigan faces down the stretch here. I mean, Michigan's going to face 4 top 20 defenses down the stretch here. It's going to have to score some points. You know, I mean, right now with Michigan's offense, I feel like Chris Rock and I'm going to get you, sucker. Could I get 1 rib, 1 touchdown? Could we get 1? How much for one field goal? I mean, it's just, we're almost halfway through the season and we don't do anything well. Nothing. Like nothing. There's no baseline of anything. There has no identity. It doesn't do anything well. Other than that, we're all fine here. We're very fine here. How are you? It's really bad. And you've got a 5-star quarterback over there over my shoulder, Shea Patterson, looking like Nick Sheridan running Rich Rod's offense. I mean, with a John O'Korn-like 93 NCAA pass efficiency rating. 93? I think, you know, that's like the ACT or the SAT. Yeah, it's the SAT, where you get like 750 or 250 or some ridiculous score just by filling out the name and address form correctly. I think you get a 93 by, you know, displaying motor function on the field. John O'Korn could get those. I don't know what's going on. We've got that guy over there on my shoulder now was the number 1 ranked high school wide receiver in the country. You've got Nico Collins, who turned down Alabama to come to Michigan. Tariq Black was a consensus top 75 national recruit. 4 returning starters on the offensive line that made some all Big Ten team last year. And you're sitting here with the worst coached offense in the United States. When you look at there's no other way to put it. When you look at the talent compared to the output, it's the worst performing offense in the country. And I don't know what they do next. Now, to me, the number 1 change that needs made, I don't know is available, because we still don't know if Dylan McCaffrey is cleared or not. And yes, I understand Dylan McCaffrey has not looked great as a passer. The problem is if your quarterback needs to be one of 2 things in this offense for it to really excel. He either needs first-round draft pick arm talent, that's Tua at Alabama, Justin Herbert at Oregon, or he's got to be a running threat, because then the goal is to make the defense account for all 11 players every down. At least with Dylan, we know he is a tremendous running threat. That would at least give them an identity, something they do well. You wouldn't be able to crash and cheat on those read plays, because he'll hurt you. I don't know what's going on with Shea Patterson. I don't know what we've done with him. I don't know what Josh Gaddis is doing. I don't know what they've done the last 8 months, because it doesn't look like they did much. If I knew the answers to these questions, a lot of you are asking them. I have the same questions you do. I'm just as frustrated as you are. And yet, Jim Harbaugh says the offense is hitting its stride. And yes, I know that's coach speak, but damn, could you have picked another cliche, Butch Jones? I mean, what do we hear next week? Michigan, well, we're champions of life. And we will get that dropped on us when we lose to Ohio State again. Enough, man. Enough. It's been 15 years. 15 years. 15 years. And we're sitting here right now, halfway through year 5 of Harbaugh, wondering, can we execute on offense at all? At all. See if we can get some answers from Michael Spath and Brandon Brown here next. Hey, I want to introduce you to a brand new partner of ours here at Michigan Podcast, Hero Soap Company. Check these guys out. Veteran-owned soap company. Sign up for a subscription and get soap delivered right to your door each and every month. 3 different options starting at just $5 a month, all the way up to the Battalion package, or as I like to call it, the Buckeye package. 3 bars of soap each month for those Buckeye fans out there who need some extra help getting that stink off. The best part of this is Hero Soap Company donates a portion of each purchase to help veterans and active military, something all of us can unite behind, Wolverines, Buckeyes, Sparties alike. Use the promo code Michigan Podcast and get 10% off of your order. Promo code Michigan Podcast, all one word, and get high quality soap without having to go to the store. Hero Soap Company. Check them out online at herosoapcompany.com. Let freedom clean. Back here on Michigan Podcast, and I'm joined now by my partners over at Wolverine Digest, also from WTKA-Ann Ann Arbor, Michael Spath and Brandon Brown. Gentlemen, good to have you back with us. Go Blue, how are you?
Doing good.
Doing terrific. Gorgeous day here in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Indeed, it is a beautiful time of year with the crisp fall air. So let's get to some good news, and let's start there first, because there was a historic level performance by the Michigan defense. I talked about it. I thought a key adjustment that Don Brown made in the middle of this game to more of a zone blitz look that completely confounded Iowa's offensive line and the Hawkeye coaches. They never really adjusted to it. Their offense never really was able to get on track. Not that it was doing great even before Michigan went there, but it was at least converting on some 3rd and longs against man-to-man coverage. And do you think this was a breakthrough performance for that defense, something that establishes an identity that will carry forward the rest of the season? Michael, I'll start with you.
I think it was a breakthrough for the defense, certainly compared to what they've done earlier on in the year. And I think that when they run up against teams similar to Iowa, a Michigan State down the road, certainly an Indiana team that doesn't have the greatest athletes but has good athletes, I think they can still have some success. I mean, we talked about it on the show this week. This is what Don Brown, this is what his gamble is. And you mentioned that he did throw some more zone blitz in there, but his gamble is, if I can get to you, if I can pressure you with my front 7 or my front 6 in such a speedy manner that you don't have time to make decisions back there, you don't have time for those crossing routes to develop, you don't have time for your best deep shot to go down the field, that's what's going to overwhelm a offense, and that's what's going to give our defense the best chance to be successful. And it certainly has worked, quite a few times in his career. It's failed a couple of times. It failed against Ohio State last year. It failed, in the past against Penn State. It failed against Notre Dame. And in those instances, he hasn't really had a second bullet in the chamber to really come at you with something else. And so, yeah, I think this was a good step forward in getting these guys the confidence, Quiddy Payne, Aiden Hutchinson, and Cam McGrone, the confidence to be that kind of defense. I still think that he's going to have to figure out, when I play some of these teams and I don't have my first plan of attack is not working, what's my second plan of attack? And maybe, we did see some more zone in this game than we've seen in the past. Maybe he's starting to come around on that. But certainly it was a positive step for this defense, and gives these guys a lot of confidence going into the second half of their schedule here.
Brandon, I thought Urban Meyer made a fascinating point on Fox after the game when he said that, when Don Brown came into the league, he thought he was the most creative defensive coordinator in the Big Ten. But he thought somewhere around in the middle of year 2 and well into the last year, he relied too much on the high-quality athleticism that Michigan had recruited and had gotten too predictable. And what he saw against Iowa was some of the old drawing stuff up in the dirt, Dr. Blitz. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if Urban Meyer said it, it probably is true. Guy knows his stuff when it comes to football. I was just going to piggyback off what Mike said a little bit in that, Don Brown has always has always done things a certain way, but if he can start to have that second wave, that second option, that second approach that he's really confident about, that does make Michigan really tough to handle. Because, like, if what Urban Meyer said is true, where Don Brown was really creative and he was coming up with new things week in and week out, but somewhere along the way, I don't want to say he got stagnant. It seems impossible that a guy like Don Brown could even do that, but was just doing stuff too often. And with all the analytics and all the people, the armies of assistants and analysts that college programs have, you can start to figure out a guy's tendencies, even if they are creative and really good at what they do. And it certainly seemed like he was doing some new things on Saturday against Iowa. I mean, I'm not convinced that Iowa's offense is very good, but I still think that Michigan played about as good as you can from a defensive standpoint. I mean, they did some things that hadn't been done in a couple of years, with the 8 sacks and the 3 interceptions, also throwing the fumble recovery and holding Iowa to its lowest score total in 3 years. The last time they scored just 3 points in a game was in the Outback Bowl against Florida in 2016. So obviously they did some really, really good things and made Nate Stanley's day miserable. He was really clean with the ball and taking care of it, coming in and turned it over 3 times. He probably he might not have ever had a day like that as a starting quarterback in Iowa. So I was really, really encouraged by what I saw. And, if it took Don Brown getting punched in the mouth by Wisconsin or losing a couple bad ones to Florida and Ohio State last year to switch things up and get back to his creative ways, then maybe we'll continue to see a new and improved and a revamped defense by Michigan moving forward, because it looked really good on Saturday.
Let's talk about complementary football, Brandon. I'll go back to you because we're going to spend the rest of our time here in a few minutes talking about whatever the Sam Hill, this thing Michigan calls an offense is, whatever this is. I don't know what it is. Okay. And I lived through Nick Sheridan playing for Rich Rod and whatever, and Al Borges literally throwing turds on walls in the press box to see what's stuck in the middle of games. And I still don't know what this is, but we'll get to that in a second. We all recognize the offense needs to improve, but there's a complementary aspect to football as well. Does a performance like this take some of that pressure off the offense? Do you go in there if you're those offensive coaches and say, guys, maybe you went into this year and we had all this hype and all this talk of speed and space and everything else, and now everybody's, we had Josh Gaddis say this after the Army game, that he really thought guys were pressing, too self-aware of the expectation level. When you get a championship defensive performance like that, and that maybe you think sets a tone, do you go in there and say to your offense, guys, just relax? The idea that we have to come out here and be Oklahoma every week, we don't have to do that. Is it possible that level of complementarianism could help on any level, Brandon, whatsoever?
I mean, I guess. I still just feel like, you're the offense. Like, your job is to go out there and score points and move the ball and put the defense on its heels. Like, I don't know. I've never played anything at that high of a level. I've played sports my whole life. I've been competitive my whole life. So I think I have some understanding of what your job is as a football player. And I cannot imagine any offensive player being like, yeah, we're cool. The defense is so good today that we don't really need to do that much. I don't know. I don't think I buy into that, and I don't think that's not what you're paying Josh Gaddis nearly $1 million a year to do, in my opinion. So,
do you know what we're paying Josh Gaddis to do? Do you even know that? Because I don't. Do you know that?
I think it's right around there, isn't it, Michael? $900,000 or $1 million $1 a year. It's something like that. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's about $900,000.
Yeah,
it's good work if you can get it. Yeah.
So to me, no, I don't really buy into that. I think if the defense, maybe situationally, certain positions on the field, certain down and distances, you might alter what you're doing a little bit. But I just can't get behind this whole systematic approach of like the defense is playing really good, so we're going to do this on offense. You're the offense. You're athletic. You're talented. Go score points. Like that. I just feel that's the way it should be.
Michael, I'm guessing you're probably going to agree with a lot of that.
No, I don't agree with anything Brandon ever has to say. Yeah, I don't know. 10 points was complementary football.
Let me restate this for a second. Pardon me. Let me restate this for a second. I wonder if one of the problems this offense has is they're trying to score a touchdown, make a big play, get 35 points. just relax. And maybe having the defense out there playing like that, you realize, you know what, man, if we walk out here with 24 points and win the game, we won the game, as opposed to, speed and space, highlights, get this guy, throw it up. I don't know. I'm grasping for something, man. Throw me a freaking bone here, Austin Powers.
Yeah, I wish I don't know, because they saw the defense playing lights out on Saturday against Iowa, and that didn't loosen them up to get. I mean, the way that the defense played in the first half or the first three quarters, you'd think like, okay, offense can kind of sit back and go, yeah, let's just play loose, let's play free. And what did they do? They played tight and they scored no points after the first quarter. The Army game, Michigan, they were moving the ball a little bit, but Michigan got that big turnover in the third quarter, and the defense was playing really well. I didn't see the offense loosen up and play relaxed and play free football against Army. And I don't know. I think of complementary football as if they have a really great defense, like they're starting to show once again that maybe they do, then you'd be more of the offense they had a year ago that run the football and control the clock and do those things. But at the end of the day, that didn't work because you're going to run into 2 or 3 opponents in a given season that can put up 30 points on your defense, because that's the nature of college football today. That's what Oklahoma and Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and Georgia are all about, is they have so many athletes and they put their athletes in advantageous situations. They've got great play callers. They've got tremendous quarterbacks, and they put up 30-plus points. And when that happens, where's the complement from the offense? Right now it's lacking, and I don't think Michigan can count on going to Penn State in 2 weeks, playing Notre Dame in 3 weeks, playing Ohio State at the end of the year and saying, hey, the defense is going to give up 17 points or less, and Michigan's going to win these games 20-17. It's just not college football in 2019.
Then let's get to the offense, gentlemen. Michael, I'll go back to you to start with. There's 3 issues I see with this offense. Number 1, it does nothing well. Number 2, it has no identity. And number 3, I'm saying there's a chance. Now, I mean, number 3 is I think ties into the first 2. It cannot execute the basic schematic vision of this offensive scheme, which is to force the defense to account for all 11 players on offense. And one of the primary ways that happens, unless you recruit a Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, who are going to be, top 10 picks in next April's NFL draft because they've got that kind of arm talent. So unless you're one of the schools that has a player like that, the other way they do this is the quarterback must be a run threat. And I just don't see how it's possible this is going to improve all that much until that becomes the case, because the reason why that's vital is, and this is why you've seen so many guys put up huge numbers in this offense in college and then not become great NFL quarterbacks, because if the defense has to account for all 11 guys, you're not really sitting back there going through reads. You're keeping defenses honest. If they're focused on you, that usually means one of your receivers is breaking free or you're running with the football. It's a really simplistic approach. And we don't look like what this offense is supposed to look like at all. And I don't know how that's going to change. I think unless the quarterback becomes a running threat. If the quarterback isn't a running threat, I don't know how we execute the rest of this offense against teams whose defenses aren't comatose. So what's your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you that certainly the quarterback needs to become a bigger running threat. Shea Patterson ran the ball one time in the first half against Iowa. I think he picked up. I think it was on a scramble situation. I don't think it was on a read option play. He then ran the ball twice in the third quarter, once for 15 yards, and I believe the other one was for 7 or 8 yards, and picked up a couple of first downs. And now all of a sudden you did have to account a little bit for the quarterback. And you know what they didn't do after those situations? They didn't then run with the running back. They didn't then continue to do the read option. Then they got away from it, and they threw the ball. I think the biggest problem that Michigan has is that they have no idea. It's not about an identity. They just have no idea how to string together plays. They can't seize momentum from play to play. We saw it, I think it was in the fourth quarter of the game against Iowa. Finally, they just had Patterson unleash 3 outs. He hit Nico Collins, he hit Tariq Black, and he hit Donovan Peoples-Jones. Boom, boom, boom. 3 nice plays in a row. And you're like, wow, they've got something going here. And then they completely stalled out again because this team does not know how to capitalize off of one successful play, whether it's the wrong play call coming in, whether it's the wrong personnel on the field, whether it's then Shea Patterson going into a funk, the offensive line. I mean, we always talk about how on any given play, if one guy makes a mistake, it usually blows the play up. I think what's happening is on every single play, there's at least one guy making a mistake, and they're trying to overcome it. And sometimes that guy that makes the mistake is the play caller. And Sam Webb and I were having this conversation earlier this week, and he's right. What Michigan's offense is right now is it has to be a big play offense because they do so many things wrong that they're not going to have that many 8 to 10 yard drives without a big play thrown in there. And yet what they're not doing is emphasizing the big play. They're not throwing the ball downfield. They're not getting the second level with their offensive linemen to create 20-yard plays in the ground game. It's just they're not doing anything well, and it's leading to, I keep on comparing it to if you knock a domino down, but you put it like 3 feet apart, you can't knock the next domino down. And what Michigan seems to have right now is they have a domino problem. They knock one down, but it's too far away from the next one, and they have no idea how to keep the dominoes falling. So I don't know how they fix that. They'll get a little bit of a reprieve against Illinois. They'll look really good, but they've got to do it in 2 weeks against Penn State for anybody to buy in that things are changing, that the offense is hitting its stride.
And yet, Brandon, you were there after the game on Saturday when Coach Harbaugh said that, as Michael just alluded to, the offense is hitting its stride. You were there on Monday at his press conference when he doubled down on that and said that he is seeing it in practice and thinks that they are close to turning the corner. So you had a chance to look him in the eye when he was saying this, Brandon, and talk to players that were, particularly John Runyon, sort of echoing a similar theme. I mean, what would you relay to our audience? I mean, are you buying it? Or more importantly, do you believe they are really buying it?
Man, that's the $1 million question. Nobody's buying what Jim Harbaugh said. Everybody in the media, it's been talked about up and down from all outlets. And I don't know how you can look at an offense that's scoring 28 points a game, that's with a 52 burger in there against Rutgers. It's 74th in the country in scoring offense, 91st in the country in total offense in terms of yardage. Like, I don't know how you can look at those numbers and say we're hitting our stride. Like, that's asinine to me. So I don't believe what he said. Now, the next question is the big one. Do the players believe that they are close? Are they seeing it in practice like Jim Harbaugh says they are? Does it feel close? Are players confused as to why, we're doing stuff in practice and it looks so good and things are happening and Shea's hitting receivers downfield and we're busting off big plays, but then in the game they're just absent. We don't know. And we'll never know because we're not allowed to see practice. We don't know what goes on behind those closed doors or what goes on, on State Street. So I don't know, man. I think when you talk to the receivers, you get a little bit of a sense of they're saying what they're told to say, but they don't. Like Ronnie Bell last week or the week before, whatever it was, he answered a question he didn't seem like he believed it at all. Donovan Peoples-Jones a couple times last night clammed right up and literally said, I don't have an answer for that. Almost next question type of thing that you hear sometimes.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. Has anybody said that yet?
Right. Hasn't got to that level yet, but essentially that's what he was doing. He just said, I don't have an answer for that. And to me, that's just not very convincing. And I don't know how. These guys are big-time players. They were the best players on their teams in high school, highly recruited, have had some success at Michigan. I don't know how they can look in the mirror and say, our offense is pretty good. We're right there. I just don't know how they can believe that. I really don't.
So, Michael, I know you break down the film, but I want to first go back to you, Brandon. You're sitting up in the press box. So you've got the eye in the sky there. Can you let our viewers and our listeners know, are you seeing receivers open? Are they not getting separation? Is it systemic? When you're watching the plays develop in a more sanitized environment from behind the glass there in the press box, what do you see that maybe we don't get a chance to see watching on television?
It seems like the receivers are not getting open. I don't know. That's a blanket statement. There's, there's 30, 40 pass plays in a game. I'm sure there's guys running open sometimes. But it's become pretty clear. Maybe the clearest thing to me is that Shea Patterson is rattled. He gets out of the pocket sooner than he should. He loves bailing out to his right. He loves it. He'll bail out to his right start running to the right side of the field so he can throw with his body way before he needs to. I know Devin pointed this out last week or the week before at Football 101 with Mike that, he'll pause and say, look right here. He's got a pocket. Like, he doesn't need to go anywhere. Where's he going? Why is he running out of there? And we see that kind of over and over again. And when you throw in the fact that you can't get the running game going, you're barely averaging 3 yards a carry, and they're shuffling guys in and out of there. We heard last week, Hassan Haskins having a great couple weeks of practice, a guy we can really lean on. We can really count on him. He had some of the nicer runs in the game, and then he touches it twice against Iowa. And then you see these. Josh Gaddis says, no, there's literally a read on every single play. Well, then why does Shea Patterson only have 3 keeps throughout the whole game on read option plays? Like, I just don't know what they're doing, and I don't think I'm really seeing anything differently on the field at the games than anybody is on TV. In fact, sometimes I like the TV broadcast better because they go back and they show replays, and you've got guys in the booth who have played the game and they break stuff down and they draw a little stuff on the teleprompter and things like that. We don't see that at the stadium. In fact, I like going back and watching the game when I get home because I get a different perspective. Sometimes at the field it happens so fast and you just see it once and it's hard to watch a replay and then the next play is going. So I don't know if I really answered your question. I feel like there's a lot going wrong with the offense at multiple levels. Receivers might not be getting open enough. Patterson bailing out a little too quick. The offensive line not opening up holes. Too much shuffling in guys in and out at running back. I don't know. It just seems to be really disjointed. And like Michael said, those dominoes are just not falling in a rhythmic pattern that you see with some of the offenses around the country that just seem to hum along effortlessly. Like, there's just none of that with Michigan's offense.
Can I interject here for a second? Because this is what drives me nuts. How is Michigan? I mean, this is like a common thing that gets brought up a lot. Like, oh, the receivers aren't getting open. If you watch the receivers, how is it possible? How is it possible that 5 years into a tenure, with recruits that you have targeted, that Alabama wanted, that Ohio State wanted, that a lot of schools went after, that you have receivers that can't get open? And why is this just a Michigan thing? Because I don't hear, now admittedly, I don't listen to every other sports talk radio station. I don't listen to every other fan base. But is every school complaining that the receivers are not getting open, or is that just a Michigan thing, complaining that they're not getting open? Because my belief is you can't possibly be at this level. You can't possibly be at this level and just not be getting open ever. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way. And if you are, then you're either you've recruited a bunch of lazy players who don't work very hard, or you have a bad scheme, or your play action and everything you're doing in the running game is so poor that a defensive back, 4 defensive backs on the field, 2 safeties and 2 cornerbacks, never even look in the backfield because they're like, we don't need to pay attention to that. We don't care. Our front 7 can stop that. So I don't know. We get asked this a lot, like, are the receivers just not getting open? How is it possible that the receivers are not getting open? Like, that is the function of receivers. Do they get open on 35 of their drop back passes? No. When you watch any game and they show like the behind the quarterback view, there's times where the quarterback drops back and his coverage is really good. But the coverage is not really good on 95% of all snaps. And yet that seems to be the perception of Michigan, that these guys are just getting blanketed all the time. No, what you've got is you've got a quarterback he won't throw into places unless a guy is wide open. And even when they're wide open, which we've seen multiple times, guys run down the field, someone falls down, the quarterback still doesn't throw him the ball. It's that simple. Devin Gardner talks about all the time. Look, you may only have a 3-foot window, but that's a window that a championship quarterback needs to make. That's the type of window that NFL quarterbacks are paid to make. And in theory, if you're a program like Michigan and you're trying to compete for a national championship and trying to compete for a Big Ten championship, then your quarterback should be an NFL quarterback. And an NFL quarterback throws into tight spaces where he knows his receivers can make a play and he knows he can get the ball. And Michigan is not doing that consistently enough. And that's something that Shea Patterson's got to improve on. He threw a couple of those balls on Saturday, but not nearly enough. That's why receivers are not open, because they're never going to have 10 yards of open space. They're only going to have 3 feet, 4 feet, something like that. And you've got to be able to fit the ball in there.
So, Michael, as someone who does break down the film, as you just noted, and has some strong opinions, as we all do, if you were sitting in Jim Harbaugh's office or Josh Gaddis's office right now, what would you say? What question would you ask, or what one or two suggestions would you make that you see when you break this film down that are concurrent, consistent themes?
I would want to know what they're telling Shea Patterson. I'd like to know how they're coaching him up, because he looks scared to throw the football in all situations. He doesn't look like the guy who at Ole Miss was flinging the ball around, having fun out there. Now, did that player at Ole Miss need to be tempered down a little bit? Yes, but not tempered down to the point where he doesn't take any risks anymore, doesn't take any chances anymore. So I would love to go at practice, and I would love to sit in the quarterback meeting rooms and see what they're saying. I mean, if he's throwing a pass that it gets picked or almost gets picked, like take the first pass of the game. He rolls out to his left, he throws across his body. Ronnie Bell is there. There's like 3 Michigan wide receivers in too close of a space. It almost gets picked. Does he come back to the sideline and they say, never ever throw a ball like that? Don't get outside the pocket. We don't want you to throw the ball on the run. We don't want you to take any risk. Because if you're doing that, what's going to happen is you hear it enough, and a quarterback is just going to become a different quarterback. That's what I would like to know, is how they've coached this kid up, because he's not the same quarterback he was at Ole Miss. He's certainly not the same quarterback he was when he first started at Michigan. He's become a different quarterback. He's become very, very reserved and very much, very much a game manager. And that's not what he was supposed to be, and that's not what you can have in college football to be successful anymore.
Brandon, same question to you. What would you say? What would you ask?
Yeah, Mike hit it on the head, I think. Can you imagine if we could go watch practice and sit in the quarterback room? That'd be awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I also think sometimes I get a little caught up because I covered recruiting so closely for 5 years that I think of what Shea Patterson was coming out of high school, how highly he was recruited. I even saw him in person at the Army game and thought he looked head and shoulders better than Brandon Peters and a couple of other guys. I can't remember who else was there that year, but just the way the ball jumped out of his hand, the way he kind of freewheeled and ran around in the pocket, made plays. There were literally people saying Johnny Manziel 2.0 when he transferred to Michigan, and everybody was so excited. So maybe the hype was too big. But I would love to just ask – I would love to ask some of the same types of things. What are you asking him to do? What do you think he's good at? What do you think he's not good at? Why aren't you putting him in a position to succeed more often? If he loves to roll out to the right, and he's very good at rolling out to the right and throwing it that way, why don't you move the pocket that way 6, 8, 10, 12 times a game maybe? I don't know. I don't know how often you can get away with stuff like that in college football. I've never been at that level to say, like, well, you do that 3 or 4 times and defenses get hip to it and you can't do it anymore. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But they don't seem to move the pocket very much for Shea Patterson. Again, I'll go back and beat the dead horse again on the pulls, on the zone reads. Like, why is he not pulling the ball? Are you telling him not to? Is he 100% healthy? Is he still shaken up from the beginning of the season? There's a million questions. If I could sit down and write them all down, I bet I could get to 40 pretty easily. So it just looks so herky-jerky when they're going down the field most of the time. The one possession where they threw the deep ball to Nico Collins, 51-yard gain, and a couple of plays. I think that was the possession they scored the touchdown on. Am I right? Or was it the possession before that? They settled for a field goal. Right. Either way, they take a deep shot, they throw the ball, and they spread it around a little bit. They do some things, and it looks okay. And then they just seem to go away from that. Like Michael said again, not a real good concept of how to string plays together that build on one another and seem to move the ball down the field. So just puzzling. It's just puzzling when you've got guys like you've got in every single game seemingly an athletic advantage so far. I think you could even say that against Wisconsin, and they got absolutely blown out of the stadium on that day. So there's a lot of questions. There really are, and we try to ask them at press conferences, and you get answers like that, hitting the stride. Offense is great. It's going to be good. I don't know. It doesn't look like it so far.
All right, gentlemen, final question. On Saturday, Michigan takes on Illinois, who in its last 2 games has given up combined well over 80 points and 300 yards rushing in each of its last 2 games as well. What do we need to see for us to see the strides this offense is making in practice that Coach Harbaugh is talking about? I can't believe if he's doubling down on it Monday, he's just out there lying about it. So he must see something in practice. All right, so what is it we need to see on Saturday then to show that this thing is making some strides? Brandon, I'll start with you.
Another dominant performance like we saw against Rutgers. Maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns. I know 4 of them came from the quarterbacks, which is kind of a crazy stat. 3 from Patterson and 1 from Milton late in the game. But another dominant performance. I mean, a game that looks like Michigan's doing whatever it wants at most times. And Illinois is bad. I mean, they're probably not Rutgers bad, but they're bad. And so they need to. It needs to look like that. It needs to be smoother. I mean, I think they need to have their way. I think they need to press the ball down the field, let those guys make plays, let the receivers make plays. It just needs to look. I mean, I feel bad. I really do feel bad. And I talked to Michael about this on Monday when we came in. Like, okay, let's not go too crazy. Michigan did win against Iowa. Like, let's not lose sight of that. It was a W. But if you think that kind of offense is going to work in Happy Valley or against Michigan State or Notre Dame or Ohio State, like, you're just confused. So it needs to be another step in the right direction in terms of, things need to look pretty easy. I think they need to be able to run the ball well. I think they need to be able to utilize the athletic advantage that they're going to have at just about every spot on the field. And playmakers need to make some plays. I want to see some big plays like we did against Rutgers a little bit, maybe even more through the passing game, because obviously I know the flavor of the game kind of dictates that a little bit. Once you get up on a team, you don't need to air it out down the field as much, but it just needs to look as close to effortless as possible, and just a little bit more explosiveness against the team that you really should beat up on.
Michael, same question to you. You get the last word.
I think they need to establish the running game, honestly. I mean, the one thing, you look at Rutgers, they put up 52 points on the Scarlet Knights 2 weeks ago. But the one thing that they still didn't do very well was run the football. They averaged less than 4 yards per carry against a Rutgers defense that I think coming into the game ranked in like the 80s in terms of rush defense. Other than the Middle Tennessee game this year, they have not averaged 4 yards per carry in a single game. And 4 yards per carry in college football is pedestrian. 5 yards per carry is essentially the norm, is the average. The best teams in college football are averaging better than 6 yards per carry. And Michigan right now is poor. I mean, they're one of the worst rushing offenses in college football. I think they're at 3.7 or so for the season. So just running the football better would be a good start against Illinois. And then, we talked about the read option earlier. Seeing Shea Patterson properly execute the read option, where I know it's Illinois and they're not going to ask him to do very much, but he should honestly 6 to 8 times pull the ball and carry it and show that he has the ability to do so, to put it on film for Penn State, for them to be aware of, like, hey, we're going to have to defend a little bit of this when we play Michigan in a couple of weeks. So I think those two things are the two big things. And then, in the running game, offensive linemen getting the second level and breaking out a big play. I mean, they have one 20-yard run this year, and it came in the first week of the season because the offensive linemen are not getting the second level. The defense is not buying the read option, and the running backs just haven't distinguished themselves. And so for me to have any hope that they can do some of those things against Penn State, I mean, they're going to throw the ball downfield a little bit. They're going to have some big plays in the passing game. I have no doubt about that. I want to see the big plays in the running game. I want to see a consistent running game, and I want to see Shea Patterson keep the ball in the read option consistently in this game against Illinois.
Michael Spath and Brandon Brown of Wolverine Digest and WTKA and Ann Arbor. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us again this week here on Michigan Podcast.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
These are exciting times at Wolverine Digest. You can see right there, we are now affiliated with Sports Illustrated. We are the official Michigan channel for SI.com. So that, of course, when you're going to be linked up with one of the great brands in all of sports, when it comes to sports media and Sports Illustrated, and you're covering one of the great brands in all of sports, the Michigan Wolverines, you need to up the ante. Now, you can see right there on our title page, myself, Michael Spath, Brandon Brown, we are bringing you loads of content each and every day. I can't even keep up all day long with the content that we are producing on a regular basis. So if you want to get all of this content, it is right now free. Everything there, all the video, audio, the podcasts, the analysis, commentary, all of it is free for you at wolverinedigest.com. This week's Twitter poll results, we asked you, do you believe Joe Milton or Dylan McCaffrey could have done better than 14 out of 26 passing for 147 yards, no picks and no touchdowns against Iowa? 73% of you said yes. 27% of you are either trolling or comatose. Maybe there's a third option. I'm not so sure. Let's get to this week's question of the week. Timothy Breen, this offense doesn't work unless the quarterback is a consistent running threat. Is Shea Patterson on some kind of pitch count? You know, Timothy, this is one of the $64,000 questions, my friend. We don't really know the answer to. I mean, he did keep it a couple of times against Iowa. He didn't look hobbled to me. I mean, there was one 15-yard scamper there. He looked quick as a cat. So I don't know. I want to know the answers to these questions. I wish I knew the answers to these questions. Here's some good news. The TV broadcast crew that's calling the game this weekend is Greg McElroy, former national championship quarterback at Alabama, and ESPN's recruiting director, Tom Luginbill. And if you're a Sirius XM subscriber like I am, and I mainly subscribe for the college channels, that's about all I listen to year round on Sirius XM, you know that Greg McElroy has been very pro Harbaugh in the past, but is getting off the bandwagon in real time. But either way, Greg will give you really blunt, conscientious analysis, because it's not just blunt, but he watches the film. He'll give you specific reasons why he's giving this criticism. Tom Luginbill is a really nice guy. I love hearing him on the radio, but he's kind of in Barrett Sallee, Paul Feinbaum territory. At least he's approaching that with Harbaugh derangement syndrome. So with those guys calling the game, I don't foresee any sugarcoating. We're going to get some answers. I think if Lugs spots anything squirrely from a chemistry standpoint or a motion standpoint or intensity focus standpoint on the sidelines, he's going to let us know. And I think if McElroy sees that there are plays that are to be made that Shea Patterson is not making, or the receivers aren't making, or the line isn't blocking, he's going to let us know. So this week, we're going to get some clarity from an outstanding television crew, albeit one that isn't necessarily in Michigan's corner right now. So I don't think they'll hesitate to be objective. And then maybe Timothy and the rest of us, maybe then we'll finally get some answers. Well, thank you for joining us here this week in our search for answers. By the way, isn't it always better to search for answers after a win against a top 15 team? Yes, it is. Let's not forget that. All right. Want to thank all of you for tuning in. Don't forget, whether it's YouTube or iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, however you access us, like 5-star review, subscribe, whichever that particular platform permits. Please, the more of those we get, that's the best word of mouth we get, and that's the most help you can give us to spread the word about what we do each week here on Michigan Podcast. Want to thank Brandon Brown and Michael Spath from Wolverine Digest. A special thank you to our friends at Detroit Sports Podcast for helping us to get the word out about this each and every week. We are back at it again next week, likely after a big win over the Biting Illini. Until then, go Blue.